As we sit here in Normandy, your son Hunter is on trial, and I know that you cannot speak about an ongoing federal prosecution. But let me ask you, will you accept the jury's outcome, their verdict, no matter what it is?
Yes.
And have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes.
Welcome back to Sunday Night in America. Even though he said he would not, President Biden has issued a broad pardon for his son, Hunter. Hunter Biden has been convicted of gun and tax charges, and that was with Merrick Garland running DOJ. Who knows what would have happened with a less friendly face at the top of the prosecution pyramid? But we won't ever know because the pardon is so expansive. In other legal news, President-elect Donald Trump has named Kash Patel as the new head of the FBI, which means current director Chris Wray will not complete his 10-year term. Kash Patel is a former federal prosecutor and a former federal public defender. He also helped find the source of the funding for the Steele dossier and uncovered FISA abuse when he worked on the House Intelligence Committee. The media and the left are pulling their hair out, but then again, both believe the Russia collusion hoax in the first place. Joining us now are Katie Cherkasky and Tom Dupree, two very, very fine lawyers who are going to help us dissect this. Katie, let's start with you. I, for one, I guess because I'm so cynical, I never believed President Biden when he said he wasn't going to pardon his child. Are you surprised at the pardon?
Absolutely not surprised at all. The only question is why he carried this on for so long at the great expense of American taxpayers. There has been so much weaponization of the Justice Department, and this is yet another example. He was asked time and again whether he would pardon him, whether he would commute his sentence, and he vehemently denied that. There's no two ways about it. So certainly it's just a brazen lie. It's very shameless.
All right, Tom, you're a smart lawyer. Why now and why so expansive? I mean, I would love to have a pardon that went all the way back to college. His pretty much does. And it is after the conviction but before the sentencing. Is that to avoid a pre-sentence investigation? Is that to avoid the temptation to cooperate against others? Why now?
Well, I think the timing, Trey, is simple. It was after the election. And the reason why Biden was continually, as we now see, lying was because it was at a time when he was a candidate, or at least Kamala Harris was a candidate, and he didn't want to come out and say what he presumably planned to do all along. I think he wanted to issue it now so that it would come before sentencing. I think that the political hit would have been even more severe if the judges, as everyone expected, sentenced Hunter Biden to serve hard time, and then the president comes in and issues the pardon. The political hit would have been even more significant. So I think that explains the timing. But look, there's no way of getting around this, no way to put this more gently than this is just total disrespect for the rule of law.
Well, Katie, let me ask you about that. I think all three of us are former washed-up prosecutors. We're not ordinarily huge fans of pardons, although I have made exceptions on occasions for people that I thought were wrongly targeted. Well, what do you make of that? I mean, the president is indeed at the top of the executive branch, and we as prosecutors serve under that. What's your general take on pardons? When are they appropriate? When are they legitimate?
Well, the president has essentially limitless pardon power over federal offenses. There is an open legal question about the prospective pardons of crimes that have not been indicted, but that may have occurred during the time frame. Obviously, the wording of the pardon here is meant to encompass any and all potential issues that have never been charged yet, but that many people have been wondering, namely the money that they've been getting from Ukraine and other overseas sources. So this pardon is essentially meant to cover that. Whether it legally and constitutionally does so is something that has never been affirmatively adjudicated. But I guess we'll see if Joe Biden tries to issue a pardon for himself before he leaves office altogether, and then we'll really know what this is about.
Tom, give us a crash course in law school. Parents cannot serve as judges in their children's trial. They can't serve on the jury for their children. They can't prosecute their children, but apparently they can pardon them. And I get the unusual, fact that he is the president, but there's a reason that we don't let parents sit or stand in judgment of their own children. They're just not known for their objectivity, are they?
Exactly. They are probably the least impartial people in the world to sit and decide something like that. But look, you put your finger on it. The reason we are where we are is because the Constitution speaks broadly. It vests a virtually unlimited pardon power in the President of the United States. It doesn't limit the people that can be pardoned. It doesn't limit the scope of the pardons. It doesn't limit the offenses that can be pardoned. It really trusts that we will have chief executives who execute this awesome power in a responsible, fair, impartial way. I don't think it was exercised in a fair and impartial way here, though.
You know, Katie, for all the talk of retribution and revenge, I really cannot think of a single person that former President Trump prosecuted that was perceived as a political enemy. In fact, quite the opposite. Shortly after he won, he said, no, I'm not going to do anything with Hillary Clinton. I think his exact quote was, she's been through enough. So for all the talk of retribution and revenge, I don't see any evidence of it with respect to President Trump.
Well, that's always been the hypocrisy from the left, saying that Donald Trump was going to weaponize the Justice Department, as they were doing so all along, including going along with this charade of the Hunter Biden trials for crimes that are absolutely not sympathetic at all, that are very serious and significant, and for which he does deserve punishment. And of course, all prosecutions are in some way selective in the sense that there is discretion about who is taken to trial. But when there is hard evidence and that someone is essentially dead to rights, then they do deserve to be brought to justice. And again, Joe Biden has carte blanche authority to issue this pardon here, but I don't think it's a highly sympathetic situation. I think we all know exactly what's going on.
Tom, let's switch gears real quick. The president also announced that Kash Patel is his pick to head the FBI. I am not at all surprised that Christopher Wray is not going to finish out his 10-year term. Chris Wray was told eyeball to eyeball by the Speaker of the House, you can be part of the cleanup crew or you can be part of the cover-up crew. And I don't know that many Republicans that think that he was part of the cleanup crew. What happened at the Bureau? Before James Comey, most people could not tell you who the FBI director was. And now, at least in my judgment, the reputation of the Bureau has taken a significant hit. What happened?
Well, it's a great question, Trey. And look, historians will go back and look at what happened over the last decade and probably reach different conclusions. I think, in my view, what happened is that the FBI lost the reputation that it always held of being an impartial, neutral law enforcement agency. And it was come to be seen by many people that it was acting out of political motives, or it was pursuing investigations and prosecutions on the basis of evidence that wouldn't normally justify investigations and prosecutions. I think that the next director of the FBI is really going to have his work cut out for him, because I do believe that the vast majority of FBI employees are loyal, honest civil servants. And they've got to get back to that place where we were before the last 10 years, where the American people can have total faith and confidence that this is a neutral, impartial, professional law enforcement agency, the gold standard, really.
I worked elbow to elbow with Kash, former federal prosecutor, former federal public defender, a unique background. I think he has been unfairly maligned. He'll have a confirmation hearing, and we shall see what comes out. But we wouldn't know about the Steele dossier if it weren't for Kash Patel, and we wouldn't have had expertise on a Sunday night if it hadn't been for two high-priced lawyers joining us. So thank you for loaning part of your time to us on a Sunday night. We'll see you both soon.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.